Okay, it is time to end up with Emma Lazarus and her poem, The New Colossus. This poem was written in 1883, so it goes somewhat beyond the parameters of our course. Our course began with Christopher Columbus, and it really should end around the time of the Civil War. But this poem seems an appropriate end for our class. As the introduction tells you, Lazarus was a wealthy socialite who turned her poetry toward the issue of violence against Jewish people that was happening in the Eastern European countries. So, at the end of the 19th century, many European nations had learned to despise their Jewish population. And so the people in those countries either encouraged or sanctioned what were called pogroms, violence directed at the Jewish people who were kept isolated from the general population and forced to live in Jewish districts. During a typical pogrom, Jewish homes were burned, their livestock killed, and sometimes the people themselves were murdered. And when these pogroms came to the Jewish people, they could do nothing about it. Nobody treated them as human beings. So, to escape this horror, many Jews emigrated to the US, where they often lived in slums on the Lower East Side and worked in sweatshops, but they were free and they could live as they chose without the threat of being murdered in their sleep. For these immigrants, America was not just a place, it was an idea. Well, many ideas: stability, opportunity, freedom. This was during the period called the Great Migration, when the US had a lot of immigrants that it had never had before. Most immigrants to the US had come from the Western European countries, France, Spain, Ireland, Germany, and so on. The Great Migration was different because people from Asia and also people from Southern Italy, as well as Eastern European Jews, began to come in large numbers because, as de Krevker tells us, their countries didn't offer them even the basics. So they didn't really have a country. And America was offering them everything they didn't have. The idea of freedom counts for a lot, always has. Immigrants used to come to different ports, but they usually came to a place called Castle Garden in New York, which was later replaced by the facility at Ellis Island. Maybe some of your folks, your grandparents or great-grandparents, passed through Ellis Island. Immigrants were processed and passed on through the golden door, as Lazarus calls it, where they entered a new life in America. Not necessarily the United States, but more America. Immigration has always been a hot button issue in our country. Many Americans who have immigrant relatives are the loudest ones who want to build a wall to keep out more immigrants. Today, we have issues with the DACA children and immigrants who bring their whole families to the US border to escape the horror show in their countries, only to have the families separated and put into detention centers. It's not really new to our country. The immigration rules change regularly. Congress has regularly played with the question of immigration based on the fear of immigrants that waxes and wanes throughout history. Emma Lazarus's poem seems like the direct opposite of that kind of fear. She tells the world in her poem that the woman who was chosen to represent us as a country is not a warrior, but a welcoming mother figure. She holds a torch to light the way, and she holds a book of laws that apply to everyone equally. And in Lazarus's poem, this statue speaks. She says to the old world of Europe that it can keep its stories about itself, its storied pomp. Who needs that? She also says she doesn't want the greatest and wealthiest from Europe. They're useless. What she wants is its trash, its refuse, its people who are tired and poor. The wretched refuse of your teeming shore, she says. This is what Lazarus says we want as a nation. So here's another ideal put into words that we never quite meet, that we never quite embrace as the reality of our actual country. We have seen ideals like this written down before, in our own study of the United States and its literature, we as a country try to stand behind those ideals, even while we also have major problems with these ideals of ours. We have this sonnet in bronze attached to our Statue of Liberty, and we have real pride in this national symbol. But sometimes we have difficulty welcoming people different from us, and we have difficulty giving opportunity to people that we may not trust. It's always been this way in our country. The nation was born of exploration, of experimentation, of resistance. And whenever the new people came, the colonists, the religious dissenters, the workers who built the country, their arrival always produced some kind of backlash. We are a country born of great ideals that we perhaps have never completely believed in. I mean, do we really think that all men are created equal? But we put down these ideas into words so that maybe we can learn to believe them. The United States continues to be a beacon of hope, even in these strange times. The United States continues to work toward its highest ideals of humanity. America has known dark days, but it has always emerged from the darkness with a renewed commitment to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all of its residents. Having gotten this far in our study of American literature, we can see better where we come from and who we are as a nation. And we can read Emma Lazarus's poem with some knowledge of how she might have truly believed what she wrote. Now, on to U.S. literature, part 2.